You know, I like to get up early in the morning. I like to get up just when the sky is starting to change color, but before it's really changing color. And sometimes I do Tai Chi, and I like to listen to a Chinese CD. It's beautiful Chinese Buddhist meditation. Chinese, playing inside my house and outside my house. I'm on the patio doing Tai Chi. There's 2 songs on the CD. One is and sometimes when people are visiting, of course it's a Chinese tape, so it's in Mandarin, I guess. And then the second one comes on, and when a person is visiting, I'll say to him, "What are they saying?" I said, "Well, I don't know. It's in Chinese." I said, "No, listen more carefully. What are they saying? What are the words?" "Well, I don't know what the words are because it's in Chinese." I say, "No, listen. It's in English, but it has a heavy accent. One more time, leaf falls down. One more time, leaf falls down." Once you hear it in English, you cannot not hear it. They'll never be able to not hear the words again, because they've now perceived them with their hearing. And you know, I was thinking about that, and it's the same thing with spirituality. With spirituality, with the spirit that is in all things. Once you see it, you cannot not see it. Once you see the spirit, the everywhere spirit that moves into all there is, you cannot not see it. I think it was Reuben that spoke earlier, and it's mentioned that, you know, there's a lot of people these days that don't see it. I was watching TV one day, and there was a guy that is worth billions of dollars who's cutting down trees and killing people in Brazil to be able to cut down trees. He's being confronted with the fact that people were being killed so he could cut down trees, and his response was, "I can't make money from a tree that's standing." He's got billions, but he wants more. He doesn't see the spirit that moves in all things. You can see it very clearly, because once you see that spirit that is in all things, separation decreases. All my relations becomes a very real concept. Last night I had the wonderful opportunity of the invitation of Phil and Reuben to go to the Van City Theater and see this movie that has been produced that Phil is in, called Us and Them. Remember? It's amazing. It was a very good movie. We talked about all my relations and the homeless. You know, if we really, really grasp the concept of all my relations, there would be no homeless. There would be no homeless, and yet there's millions and millions of homeless in a society that's very technologically advanced by people that don't see the spirit in all things. There's only a small part of humanity that sees that, but it's an increasing number. We're seeing the deterioration and degeneration and the logical result of seeking growth. Any politician you ever hear talk says growth. We want to have growth in the economy. You know, we want to raise the gross national product, GNP. I was at an environmental conference in Toronto one time, and they had some guy from the federal government get up. I was sitting in the back, and I don't remember if Phil was there that time, but Alex Ahineku and Phil and I were there, and said other very distinguished Native elders in the back, and they had some non-Native up on the stage talking about Native concepts. And they had a guy up there talking about going green. We can still have growth, and we can go green. And you know what? That's not true. Because infinite growth in a finite system is a definition of cancer. A cancer cell is eternal. Eternal life. The goal of some religious believers. Eternal life. You know, the difference between a cancer cell and a regular cell is that the cancer cell don't die. It goes on forever. And infinite growth in a finite system is impossible. I spoke at the gathering last year, and I shared the idea, that's one of my really strong ideas, that the primary principle of economic development should be the same as the principle for healthcare. First, do no harm. If something does harm, it would be better not to do it. We don't have to have these projects that do harm. Before Columbus, we weren't doing any harm. We interacted with the environment in a way and there was economic development before Columbus. There was things that happened. The 60 million buffalo herd in the Great Plains didn't just happen. That was a planned and cultured area. From the tribes in Texas to the tree line north of Edmonton, every single tribe managed the buffalo herd. That was a managed project, but managed in a way that the environment was strengthened and increased. If an economic development project destroys something in the environment, it's doing harm. If a doctor does that to you, you can sue them. The doctor, supposed to take out your kidney, but accidentally cuts off your arm, that's a problem. It's the same with economic development. All the economic strategies before Columbus, the trading routes, and everything were designed to strengthen the environment. There's a reason why there were so many fish coming up the Fraser River. You could just see them across the river. The river was full of fish. The Columbia River was full of salmon. I mean, they were pushing each other out on the banks. Now today you have people fighting over the little bit of salmon that's left. Because it was an economic management system here that developed resources and strengthened them in a way that benefited all people without harming anything. If you've got to harm something to make a buck, it's malpractice. It's economic malpractice. And anyway, getting back to my idea that seeing the everywhere spirit, once you see it, then it's everywhere. It's in every rock, it's in every tree, every bird, everything has life. Once you see it there, all things are holy and sacred. All beings are holy and sacred. All human beings are holy and sacred. And last night I shared that, because we were talking about the homeless, that when the peacemaker taught for 40 years to establish the Great Law of Peace and the Iroquois Confederacy, when he finally, after many years of teaching, had one person that believed in him, said, I think you are the Creator's representative. And that person's name was Hiawatha. And when Hiawatha accepted the peacemaker, he said, I have returned your dignity to you. Your dignity has been returned to you. He said, and this is a powerful sentence, your nobility has been returned to you. All human beings have the right to have dignity by virtue of birth. By virtue of birth. A statement that comes from the Great Law. We hold these things to be self-evident. That all human beings, by virtue of birth, have the right to dignity and health. And as a former director of the Institute for Aboriginal Health at UBC before I retired, I can tell you that the human beings, that's us, we're getting sicker because of the strategies that we're seeking. Not only we're getting sicker, but the earth is getting sicker. Cancer rates are increasing 0.5% in most human populations, but not in the Amish. Amish have less than 1% cancer rate. They grow their own food. They don't watch TV. They don't engage in a lot of the emotional kind of stuff that we engage in reality shows. Reality shows are demonstrated emotional incompetency. I won't allow anything on TV. Yeah. I won't allow anything on the TV I wouldn't want somebody saying to me if they were present in my living room. We won't watch that kind of stuff. Watched a great show on the development of Yosemite Park the other night. That was a very, very beautiful show, Channel 27. But I don't watch reality shows because they make sickness. Our words can make sickness. We have to watch our words. Our words can make sickness for ourselves. And you know, in Oklahoma, where my family's from originally, there are tornadoes. I've seen 2 in my life. You know, I've been present when a tornado was near. It's quite a spectacle. But there's no earthquakes. At least there didn't used to be. Now, because of economic malpractice, there's 900 earthquakes in Oklahoma last year. Buildings, which were colonial buildings that I'm kind of against in the first place, but they are beautiful buildings, are cracking and crumbling to the ground. Old towns that have been there for a long time are shaking. 900 earthquakes a year. That's 3 earthquakes a day in a place that never had earthquakes before. And those earthquakes have now been scientifically linked to fracking. And you can, maybe I should make a comment on the American political election, but you can thank Hillary Clinton for that. It's the world's foremost promoter of fracking. And in case you didn't know, 7 minutes. And speaking of Hillary Clinton, and this is kind of off the subject, but I see I have 7 minutes left, so today, when the news guy asked her what her response was to Donald Trump's criticism of her, she said, "Well, I'm used to men going off the reservation," which is a racist statement. And I was so happy that later in the day, when they asked a Donald Trump supporter what she thought about that, and she had a statement. Then they asked the Hillary Clinton supporter, who was a black woman, I think. And I was so glad she said, you know, my dad called me and said, if you're on this show tonight, you must say that that's a racist term. It's the assumed racism that's okay with natives, but would not be okay with anyone else. I was so happy that was raised. And I was sharing with Brother Shane as we were coming over here. The Native profile is coming up. There's people starting to realize that what we've been saying for a long time was right on. It wasn't because we wanted to have a culture for the anthropologist. It's because we have wisdom that people need to survive upon the earth. Phil and I heard the elders speak in the 1950s and 60s when they said the earth is going to shake. It's going to actually shake. And I always wondered, you know, how is that going to be? But it's shaking now. Oklahoma's shaking now. 3 earthquakes a day. Shaking buildings right off their cement foundations. The earth is shaking. This is that time foretold long ago by our wise ancestors in this Turtle Island. And 2 things are happening. The disintegration of the old world order and the integration of a new order. And I'm really happy to be part of that. I thought it was going to happen sooner. Wish I had another lifetime. But I'm glad to see that it is happening. But the shaking is going to get pretty bad before it's all over. But I'm happy that, really always honored when Chief Daryl Bob first called me to be part of these gatherings. I was really honored to be so in this last 8 years. And so with that, just thank you for inviting me to speak here tonight, all my relations.